Yo, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? Christian from Sbygo back again with another deck profile. This time for my Elemental Hero Neos build that I've been playing for the past few weeks. Funny story is that we actually filmed this deck profile a few weeks back, but for some reason there are some uploading issues. And because I have access to the equipment, we decided that I would just film it by myself. That's pretty much why you don't see anyone else but me today. And yeah, pretty much with my build, I was able to get 6th place at a locals. It was funny because my matchups was Math Mech, and then after that was just pure Sprite after, like 4 Sprite matches in a row. But I was able to go 3-1-1, which isn't really too bad considering what this deck can do. After making some changes, some minuscule changes, I was actually able to do a little better. So yeah, I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and get this started. Right, so starting off with our monster lineup, I am playing one Elemental Hero, Spirit of Neos. This is pretty much one of the new cards that was introduced from Power of the Elements, and what it does is that when your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can actually special summon it from your hand in defense mode, and as long as it remains face up on the field, it can't be destroyed by battle. It actually does come up a lot, just because it's able to save you a turn, and the fact that the battle protection lingers forever is very nice. Also, when it's special summoned, it gets to search you a spell or trap that mentions a hero's and monster's name or polymerization. The search is super broken just because there's a lot of things you can search in this deck, like a bunch of cards that just mention Elemental Hero Neos' name. And also you can shuffle it back to bring out a normal Elemental Hero monster. So most of the time you're going to be bringing out Elemental Hero Neos. I'm playing 2 of them just because it is a Neo-centric deck, so I figured 2 is the best number. I tried 1. 1 isn't really right for me, per se, just because if you lose access to that 1 Neos, you're pretty much screwed if you're unable to recycle it back. That's why I'm playing 2. As for the Neo-Spacians, compared to everyone else, I'm actually playing all 6 of them. So I'm playing Aerial Hummingbird, Aqua Dolphin, Dark Panther, Flare Scarab, Glomoss, and Grand Mole. Pretty much the ones that people play the most are just Aqua Dolphin, Dark Panther, and Grand Mole. I decided to play all 6 just because some of the cards, like, it's nice to see a Neo-Spacian in hand because these are just free discards. And the whole purpose of this deck is pretty much just to set up if you're going first, that way your opponent has difficulty playing around with what you have. Because surprisingly, this deck doesn't really care about any type of board breakers that your opponents may play, like Dark Luna More, Evenly Match. It doesn't really care because it's really just about setting up for what you can do. Yeah, Air Hummingbird, pretty much you gain life points based on how many cards your opponent has. This actually won me a game, believe it or not. Aqua Dolphin, everyone knows what Aqua Dolphin does, one of the strongest Neo-Spacians just because you get the hand knowledge. Dark Panther is nice just to be able to copy a monster on your opponent's side of the field. Doesn't really come up though, but it'd be fun if you can copy Burn. Flare Scarab and Glomoss don't really come up either. They're just kind of there as more the discards. Obviously, Flare Scarab gains 400 attack for each spell or trap your opponent controls, so it can kind of get beefy depending on what you're playing up against. Glomoss is really the odd one out just because it's dependent on what your opponent draws, but I feel like there are times where if they were to draw into a spell, the direct attack would actually win me a few games. And then Grand Mole is really just super powerful, just being able to get rid of problematic cards that your opponent has if you're able to bait out all the negates. And as for the last of the Neos package, I play triple Crosskeeper. This card is actually super broken just for the fact that you can send it from hand or field to the graveyard to be able to special summon an Elemental Hero monster from your hand. So most of the time you always want to use Crosskeeper effect to special summon Spirit of Neos if you have Spirit of Neos in hand. That way Spirit of Neos can trigger its effect to search. But also when you special summon a Elemental Hero fusion monster from your extra deck, you can actually banish this card and then draw 2 and then put 1 card on the bottom. So that draw power is actually pretty insane and actually synergizes well with the rest of the hero cards. Speaking of the rest of the Elemental Hero cards I'm playing, I played the 1 Stratos. I've been debating about playing 1, 2, or 3. Honestly, I feel like 1 is all you need in this specific build. Play 2 Elemental Hero Shadow Mist. 2 is the right number, honestly. 1 is not enough and 3 is too much. You always want to go with 2. Play the 1 Liquid Soldier. Draw power is also insane, and just being able to have access to Absolute Zero is nuts. The 1 Blazeman just because it searches you polymerization, because there are times where you do need to search for polymerization. And the effect to send a hero monster from deck to graveyard does come up sometimes, just be worried that you get locked into fusion summoning for the rest of the turn, which is sometimes unfortunate. And then the 1 Solid Soldier. This is just to give you more bodies on the field. It also just helps you link summon into the 1 Link monster that I play. And also, it's actually another way to bring out the Spirit of Neos, because say you have the Spirit of Neos in hand, but you don't have Crosskeeper, you can pretty much normal summon Elemental Hero Solid Soldier, either special summon another hero monster for a level 4 or lower Elemental Hero monster, so like Stratos or a Blazeman, and you pretty much activate Poly, fuse the Solid Soldier and the Spirit of Neos. That way you go into your Sunrise, and the effect of Solid Soldier, you special summon the Spirit of Neos from the graveyard, and then when you do that, you get the effect of the Spirit of Neos to trigger. So it's pretty much, this is pretty much here for certain situations, but it's honestly really nice, just like I said, to just be able to use another monster on the field to go into only 2. That is pretty much it for the monsters. Go ahead and get this all cleaned up real quick. For the spell cards, we are playing the 1 Reinforcement of the Army. You play the Platinum so you always see it. Most of the time I'm always going to be using this to search for a Crosskeeper, just because Crosskeeper is really broken. If not, I'm going to be using this to search for Stratos or a Shadow Mist. Play triple A Hero Lives. This card's at 3, so you might as well play it at 3. I think I've said this in past profiles, but life points don't matter. The only life points that matter is when they hit 0, so paying 4,000 isn't really a big deal. Worst case scenario, if you have nothing really playable in hand except A Hero Lives, just special Shadow Mist, that way you can search for a change quickly spell and go to Dark Light, because Dark Light is still very powerful in this game. Play triple E Emergency Call. Because this is an Elemental Hero centric deck, I feel like E-Call is very necessary. At least it helps you in terms of consistency to search for an Elemental Hero monster. Plus it's not once per turn, so like you can bait out an Ash with this and then activate another one in hand. For the Neo spell cards, I play triple E and Engage Neo-Space. This card is pretty busted just for the fact that you can send an Elemental Hero monster and a Neo-Spacian, one from hand, one from deck, to the graveyard. And the best part is that it's cost. And when you do that, you can special summon a Neo-Spacian or a level 5 or higher Elemental Hero monster from your deck. So this is pretty much what you're always going to be using to special summon your Spirit of Neos. And in case you decide to summon the OG Elemental Hero Neos, it actually gains 1,000 attack. You also search Polymerization, that is actually pretty mandatory. But yeah, downside is that you get locked into fusion monsters only from the extra deck. But I mean, it doesn't really matter because there are lines where being able to just fusion summon doesn't really bother you that much because this is a fusion-centric deck. Also play triple Instant Contact. This is pretty much an instant fusion for Elemental Hero monsters, level 7 or lower, and also the Neo-Spacians. By pretty much paying 1,000, you can special summon one of them from your extra deck. As long as you have Neos on the field or graveyard, their effects aren't negated and they can attack. Downside is if you don't have Neos, obviously they can't attack, their effects are negated, and they go back to the extra deck at the end of the turn. I'd ask your local judges about the ruling for this card because I know that did come up. Like, people do have questions, so just be aware of that. But honestly, I love really running 3 just because it's a really good extender. Play a triple Neos fusion. Once again, this is a very Neos-centric deck, so might as well play a triple Neos fusion. Worst case scenario, this helps you go into a pot of greed by saying an Elemental Hero Neos and a Crosskeeper to go into Brave Neos. But one of the best parts about this is that it's pretty much like a Salamangreat Balinx, where if your Neos fusion monster is going to be destroyed by battle or card effect or return to the extra deck, you can actually just banish this card from the graveyard. Yeah, this is just nice because you can send an Elemental Hero Neos and one of the fusion materials. This is for Elemental Hero Neos fusion monster. So this card actually is very nice. Most of the time it kind of sucks because you can't special summon for the rest of the turn after you activate it, but it's really useful. For the rest of fusion spells, I play double Polymerization. I feel like 2 is needed for this particular deck because if you draw into one of them and you aren't able to use it, Ian Engage Neo-Space is dead. Plus, like I said, this is a fusion-centric deck, so it does make sense to run 2. Play the 1 Miracle Fusion, just because it is, like I said, an Elemental Hero deck, so you gotta play the Miracle Fusion because of Sunrise. I really wish I could see this card less, but what can I do? It's always glued to my hand, unfortunately. And I play the 1 Mass Change. That way I can go to Dark Law through either Shadow Mist or any other Dark Hero monster I have available on the field because, you know, like I said, Dark Law can still win you games because it is that strong of a card. For the rest of the spell cards, because I had no space on my table, playing triple Forbidden Droplet. It makes sense if you don't have access to this card. Honestly, Chalice does the same thing. Everyone knows what this card does. Pretty much send cards from your hand or field to the graveyard to cut the attack half of that many monsters your opponent controls and also negate their effects. It just really helps you OTK, but like I said, if you don't have this card, Chalice is a good option. And then the 1 Call By, just because Call By is very nice to have always. You know, it helps you go through your hand traps and also disrupt your opponent in some cases. As for the traps, we are playing triple Favorite Contact. I'm playing 3 just because if you aren't able to get Spirit of Neos in your circulation, it's nice to have one in hand. And what this card does is that you can basically special summon a Hero Fusion monster from your extra deck by shuffling the materials from your hand, field, graveyard, or face of banish back to the bottom of the deck. The best part about this is that if you use Elemental Hero Neos as a fusion material, the summoned monster can't be bounced back to the extra deck. So because of that, it can actually cause a lot of problems for your opponent just because there will be a body that they can't get rid of as easily, you know. And that's pretty much it for the main deck. I don't play any hand traps personally, just because I feel like hand traps make this deck really clunky. The way how this deck works is that you're supposed to play through your opponent's field, and you know, if you aren't able to at least play through 2 negates or sometimes 3, then it's probably best to just give your opponent the round win, or the game win, sorry. Just give them the game win, so that way you go into game 2, so that way you don't give them any knowledge. For the extra deck, like I said, we were playing one Link monster, which is Extra Hero Infernal Devicer. This card is good because when you Link summon it, you can actually reveal a Hero Fusion monster from your extra deck and add up to 2 of the materials listed on it. So most of the time you're gonna be, most of the time I reveal Elemental Hero Nebula Neo, so that way I can add Neo-Spacian, Granule, and Dark Panther in the hand. So this pretty much helps you facilitate those certain fusion summons with favorite contact. As for the Elemental Hero Fusion monsters, I play the one Elemental Hero Flame Wingman. This is pretty much your main target off of instant contact most of the time. And also, like, you know, Flame Wingman is just so nice just because it brings a lot of nostalgia. It's actually pretty cool because whenever I summon this guy at the card shop, like most of the people there that are watching my duels are like, oh yo, that's sick, it's Flame Wingman, this is so cool. Obviously, like the effect to deal damage to your opponent based on the monster's attack that destroyed is just very nice. It can come up a few times. I play one Elemental Hero Absolute Zero. The board wipe is still crazy for this card. And just being able to summon it off of Fairy Contact and using an Elemental Hero Neos creates such a problem for your opponent because they have no way to get rid of this because they can't even bounce it back with like a Draco back or a Kaleido Heart. So the only way to get rid of it is just, you know, battle or banishing it. Just be careful though, because if you use this against your elements, it would trigger their effects. But against other matchups like this, just becomes a problematic card. Play the one Elemental Hero Escuridao, just because there are some occasions where I do need that Dark Hero in case I have, you know, have double Shadow Mist in hand and a Polymerization. That's all I have. That way I can at least use the Shadow Mists in a way. But that's pretty much all it's used for, just, you know, an extra body, plus it's a Dark Elemental Hero monster to help you go into the Dark Lot. Play the one Elemental Hero Sunrise, just for the fact that it's very generic by using 2 Elemental Hero monsters with different attributes, so it's super easy to bring out. Obviously it searches you the Miracle Fusion, which I said, but sometimes I don't even search it because it's already in my hand, unfortunately. But being able to boost your monsters by 200 attack for each different attribute I feel like is insane, just because most of the time you're going to be ending up with 3 attributes, so everything is already plus 600. And being able to target a card and pop it on the field is just super nice, like that becomes super helpful. And the last one I play is Elemental Hero the Shining, at least in terms of the generic Elemental Heroes. Shining is really just a tech option I'm trying out right now, just because there are times where in the very long run game, I would need to use like another Sunrise, but I don't want to personally run a second Sunrise. So pretty much the logic behind this is that I would use Fairy Contact to shuffle a Sunrise and like another Elemental Hero monster to bring up the Shining, just because the Shining uses a light Elemental Hero monster. It's also just pretty good just for the fact that most of the deck is light monsters, so it's very easy to summon out. And sometimes you get super beefy too by just gaining 300 attack for each banished Elemental Hero monster. As for the Neos monsters, I play one Elemental Hero Air Neos, one Dark Neos, one Glow Neos, and then one Grand Neos. Best part about this is that you can actually summon these guys off of instant contact, and if you have Neos in the field or graveyard, then they can use their effects. It makes sense if you don't have access to Air Neos just because of how expensive it is. You can use Flare Neos, Aqua Neos instead. Personally, I wouldn't use Aqua Neos because at my locals are just a bunch of Scalar players. But Air Neos is great just because it gains attack as long as your life points are lower than your opponent's life points, so it pretty much gains that difference. Dark Neos is nice just for negates. Most of the time I always negate itself, so that way it can stay on the field if I summon it off the Neos Fusion, so I can go to Dark Ball sometimes. Low Neos is very good spot removal, just for the fact that if you destroy an opponent's card, it gets these effects, depending on what you destroy. So if you destroy a monster, it can't attack, unfortunately. If you destroy a spell card, it can attack your opponent directly, which actually did come up a few times. And if you destroy a trap card, it goes to defense mode, but like I said, it's mainly good for the spot removal. Grand Neos is pretty much bounces your opponent's monsters back to your hand, so that comes up very nicely. Like I said, if you summon these guys off of instant contact, like their effects will be live as long as you have the Neos on the field or graveyard. For the other Neos fusions, I use the one Brave Neos. Pretty much the only, well, not only, but one of the few Neos monsters that actually need Polymerization. This card is very nice just for the fact that it can get beefy, because it gains 100 attack for each Neo-Spacian one and each Elemental Hero monster in your graveyard. So it can easily get over your opponent's monsters. And when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, it can search for a spell trap that mentions Elemental Hero Neos in name. So most of the time you'll be searching for favorite contact, that way you can interrupt your opponent during their turn. Like I said earlier, I play the one Elemental Hero Nebula Neos. Besides revealing it off of Infernal Devices to add Dark Panther and Granule to hand, Nebula Neos is good for those occasions where you actually do need to summon it just for draw power and negates one card in the field. That did come up one of my rounds where I was able to draw into most of my side cards against my opponent, so that's nice. The next 2 cards are pretty much what I call the quote-unquote boss monsters of this deck. So I play the one Cosmo-Neos. Cosmo-Neos is insane just for the fact that if you special summon it, your opponent can't activate any cards or effects for the rest of his turn. The best part is that they can't even respond to the activation of it. So they pretty much get locked out from doing anything. And what's cool is that if you summon it off a favorite contact on your opponent's draw phase, just because you can, because they're entering a different phase and you have a chance to respond, you bring out this guy, they can't do anything with the rest of the turn. Just be worried whenever you play against Sbygo, because as long as they have 2 level 2s on their hand, they can bring out Sky Cavalry, which can go into Zeus. So just be aware of that. But honestly, like, this card can help you win games, maybe even rounds, depending on if your opponent is able to stop you or not. The other boss monster is Elemental Hero Shining Neo Swingman, the new cover card from Power of the Elements. Honestly, really love this card because not only do I think it looks really cool, but just for the effect that, whenever it's special summoned, you can actually destroy your opponent's cards up to a number of different attributes on the field. The best part is that it's both fields, so like say they have a dark and you have a light and a wind, it'll destroy up to 3 cards. And it can be destroyed by card effects. It gains 300 attack for each monster in your graveyard. Like, it can become super problematic because it just gains so much attack. And if you special summon this off a favorite contact, your opponent can't even bounce it back, so they have to deal with a huge wall. And then obviously, Darklaw. Darklaw is pretty self-explanatory for this whole deck, because it is a hero deck and you play Master Chains. Like, Darklaw is still super powerful, being able to banish everything that your opponent has. And that's pretty much the extra deck. I'll get this out of the way. As for the side deck, I am playing 1 Red Reboot. It's very good going second, so why wouldn't you play Red Reboot? Play a triple Appointer of the Red Lotus. I honestly feel like this card is somewhat mandatory in this current format just because you get that hand knowledge of your opponent and you can pretty much either take out a problematic card or one of their starters. I play triple Solemn Judgment. This card is also just pretty busted. I just feel like this is also just mandatory in this format. For the spells, I play triple Dark Moon Memoir. Honestly, besides Forbidden Droplet, this is also one of the best board breakers that you can have, just because they probably won't be able to respond to the spell trap. Dark Blue is nice. The only downside is that you do lose out on your battle phase, but by then you should already be set up to summon either a Cosmo-Neos or a Shining Neo Swingman to disrupt your opponents. Triple Twin Twisters. This is pretty much your back row removal, your main source of back row removal. I did think about Cosmic Cyclone, but I feel like Twin Twisters is much better. Because you do discard a card, so you can discard a Shadow Mist's Search or a Neo-Spacian to get in the graveyard to make favorite contact live for Cosmo-Neos. But just can destroy up to 2 spell or traps on the field is nice, because you pretty much get rid of your opponent's back row if they set a lot. Play the 1 Wrath of Neos. This is mainly for fun, just because it's a searchable board wipe, It at least forces something. I mean, that's at least what happened when I played it. It forced my opponent to respond, because if they didn't, then everything would go bye-bye. And I play the 1 Pankratops. Pankratops is honestly just a very powerful card still. It helps you clear out a sprite board, you can special summon it, attack over Toad, and then use this effect to pop the elf. That way they lose access to the Toad, so Pankratops is just a very strong card. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, that is pretty much all I have to say for my Elemental Hero Neos deck. It's honestly really fun to play. I actually would like to say that this is probably the most fun hero variation deck that I played, compared to like, Omni Hero and Branded Hero. It's just super nice just play Elemental Hero Neos deck. Being able to use Neo-Spacians and like surprise your opponent with Cosmo-Neos, because most of the time I'm not going to be expecting it. There's actually a time where I did summon the Cosmo-Neos and my opponent got super salty, so I'd like to apologize for that. But honestly, like, this is a very fun deck. Like, I'm having a lot of fun with it, and this is probably what I'm going to be playing most of the time. And if I'm not playing it, it's probably only going to be for a day. In terms of shoutouts, I like to shout out the boys from Yugioh. I like to shout out Jared, because he's pretty much been my main playtesting buddy to help me understand this deck. And because of all those days that we playtested, all those like endless hours, I've been able to at least learn more of the obscure combos that I can do. I'd like to shout out Aiden for pretty much being our sponsor. He let me use some of the Neos cards that I didn't have access to while I was waiting for them to come in the mail. I'd like to shout out the boys from Team FUB, Orlando, Fernando, Felipe, David. I'm trying to remember who else is there, but I can't remember off the top of my head. They are very cool guys, and they pretty much helped me get better at this game. Shout out to David, San Ysidro Games, honestly the best locals at San Ysidro, or in San Diego area, my bad. Shout out to T-Man for also just being a very good friend. Shout out to my boys, Alexis, Chris, Vinny, and Victor for just being very good friends and also, you know, being very chill. Shout out to my Discord buddies. There's a lot of you, so I'm sorry if I didn't say your names, but you guys know who you are. And I believe that is actually it. Oh, shout out to all the hero players, you know, that have been playing with the new Power of the Elements cards. Just watching all your videos and getting all that knowledge has helped me like build this version of the deck. I'm sure it could be better, but like this is what I enjoy playing with, you know? So all those, you know, all that information is just super helpful. Before I close this video, I'd like to thank you all for helping us reach 200 subscribers. It's really insane because we actually didn't think it was possible because we thought, you know, we are a very small YouTube channel, so it's actually very nice to see that you guys do enjoy our content. We also do appreciate the comments. It's just very nice to see what people think with all the live duels. Sorry if some of them aren't as like up in terms of quality, but you know, it is something that we enjoy doing, just being able to show off like the whole community that we have here in South Bay, California. And with that, there isn't really much to say, so thank you guys for clicking on this video. Until next time, peace.
Like, comment, subscribe.